Alright everybody, this is my second attempt at creating this video. I tried to do separate audio and video and I couldn't get the stupid things to sync up, so trying OBS out, and so far it looks like it should work okay. So yeah, let's get started. This is video 2 of the world building map creation series, and right now I'm just showing you a picture of basic world map zoomed in on the area that I decided to focus my story on for the most part, and that would be basically all of Europe, from Iceland all the way basically over to the Ural Mountains, which is somewhere around in there, kind of down around the other part of Central Europe, down to, through the Mediterranean, up and around kind of this basic main part of Europe. Because I wanted to create a semi-realistic medieval European foundation for my story, and I wanted to incorporate a lot of the cultural aspects of the different countries and the different regions, at least as a starting point, so that I can use that as a base and then just change things up as I see fit, to fit the story. So it's just not because I didn't want it to be like an alternate history of Europe or anything like that. That wasn't what I was going for. So yeah, I mean, basically, zoom out a little bit so we can see that full map. So like I said, you can use any kind of world map, assuming you're not going to be doing your story on a distant planet or something. But if you have a reference like this, where you can get a kind of a better idea of what kind of landscape, what kind of climate and geographical features you want to have on in your world, you've got a completely charted and detailed oriented map of our own globe, with plenty of details, scientific and otherwise, to use as a starting point. So don't hesitate to start with the familiar and then move out from that and change it to the exotic. That would be my advice. Easier to start with something that's got a lot of research already put into it and go from there. So yeah, here's a kind of a more narrowed down idea of what I wanted to do. We've got a scale here, or a distance measuring tool, so that I can go through and measure out the distances of the actual countries, so I can decide on the scale I want to use on my own. It gives me a better idea, because if I'm going back and researching old battles and wars that took place during medieval times, and when there was a campaign where a march from one place to the other, and it gives you a better idea of all the moving around certain armies did during these times, and travel wise and everything. And it's just another aspect that can bring a little bit more realism to your story, instead of just kind of magically appearing here and there, assuming you don't have some form of travel that wasn't available back then. You're flying on dragons or something like that, which I don't have. So they're traveling pretty much by standard means, ship, horseback, on foot, wagon, and that sort of thing. So it gives a pretty good idea. You can tell distances from place to place. If I wanted to measure the distance from Berlin to Warsaw, or Warsaw to Kiev, they're not going to be named that in the story I'm doing. But if I put capitals and locate them in certain areas that are similar, then it give me a good idea of what a person's travel time would be between places. So it's very helpful. And you can also look and kind of see how all the rivers and lakes and and seas and everything are distributed, how the paths of the different rivers. If you were to get a map that had a topographical grading on it, so that you could see the different heights of the different mountain ranges and see where the rivers start, get an idea of actually how those things formed, which is important for a very realistic map. So this is, again, where the Ural Mountains end, or I guess our start and end, is kind of my cutoff point. So essentially in this is a real good description, and showing basically everything in green, including Iceland over here, of what is included. Basically there's a cutoff point here. I don't have any part of like a Middle Eastern area, or Asia Minor. I think no, maybe that wasn't maybe that was considering more around here, but the Near East or whatever over here will be on a separate landmass. It's not going to be connected to the continent. So basically, this is my starting point. And there are other types of maps that you can use. This shows different climates, different biomes, types of forests that exist, types of like I said, you've got tropical and subtropical. You have boreal forests. You have deserts. You have tundra, savanna, flooded grasslands, and all these different places that occur on certain places depending on the latitude of where and longitude as far as where all these things are located at. So that is a very helpful tool. And then here I just have a basic black and white map that I can put it into Microsoft Paint, and I can go around and cut sections out of the map. I can zoom in, zoom out, color things in. Do some really basic kind of amateurish MS Paint work, because I'm not an artist by any means. And I could take certain parts. I could take part of Asia and I could swap it out somewhere here, swap another place over here, start moving, mixing around, and change the shapes a little bit, and come up with a completely different map without having to draw everything from scratch. And like I said, you'll see my finished map, and it besides a couple of areas that will obviously kind of be a dead giveaway for something like the UK. A lot of it you wouldn't automatically figure out was based on the portion of Europe I was telling you about. So that's all for that one. Going back to my desktop here, like I said, I'm using OBS, and yeah, this is basically the main concept that I came up with, in my real rudimentary version with Microsoft Paint. I just cut a chunk out of that portion of Europe. So, like I said, we had basically the border of like the Ural Mountains here, and then and obviously a lot of it. I mean, obviously this kind of would remind you of like Britain or whatever, and it'll even more so on the good map, not my kind of goofy map, but. I gave the names to the different kingdoms there. I marked a place where I wanted to have a mountain range, some little forest there to give myself some view. And then there was a water feature, like a river that leads to a lake, where is kind of an important part in the story where basically an army is trying to take a shortcut over the mountains in winter to sneak up on an opponent, taking the river away when it's frozen, and trying to come up to a fort and take it over when they're not, nobody would expect someone to be crazy enough to try something like that. So it's a kind of it's more in depth than that, but it's kind of the basic gist of one of the parts in the story. So I knew from a storytelling standpoint that I needed this feature on my map because it was going to play a major part in the story. So that's that. Here's basically the first kingdom, Melithian, which is more focused on the United Kingdom, also Germany, France, Switzerland, and basically the kind of more Western Europe. So it's got naming, like Ardenbrook or Inglemore or Dunhead or Boldshire. Those all sound more, like something from the UK, or Rothwick or Windford or Rothkiel or something, something that would sound more like Western European, not necessarily, Mediterranean or Norse or Slavic. Atlatrona is basically, you can see the naming conventions are different. This is more of like Spain, Portugal, and Italy. As far as my starting point is, it's not literally supposed to be that, but. So I chose naming conventions for that that reflect that region. They have a similarity, so that if somebody, had a name that kind of had a sing-song kind of sound to it, like some of these, like Liozzo or Veladisi or Pezzaro or something like that, you would have a halfway decent idea of where they came from. Zastrova, of course, is supposed to be pretty, but Slavic, Russian, I guess you could say, since there's another part that's more Central Europe. But like I said, I've got Vorsk and Gastrovania, Milenia, and Limovia and things like that, which to me, they're not might necessarily be Slavic, if you were to actually compare it to a linguistic comparison, but and Mirandavia. They just have that kind of more of a Slavic sounding ring to it, and close enough that, like I said, these naming conventions grouped together will give you a familiarity with a certain region. We have Nitvoldenskog. Nit or is not a word, that I just found in in a foreign language thing. It's just basically New Voldenskog, because Voldenskog itself is kind of a Norse Scandinavian area, and this is one of these territories that they usurped from Zastrova and claimed, so they named it New Voldenskog. And again, kind of Germanic or Norse sounding names for them. Like I said, the capital is Rhodaskog, which means red forest. So that has to do with a very gruesome, bloody battle being fought there. So a lot of massacre took place. So that was kind of got its nickname. You have Eisenschild and Eisenschwert, which is iron shield and iron sword. And basically, I named them that because when the Zastrovans came north to try to reclaim their lands from the Voldenskog, or the Volden, if you will, this was the border which they were fighting at, basically, and that kind of became the marked territorial border because they couldn't push the Volden any further back, and so they named it Iron Shield and Iron Sword because of how it basically was like the land itself was a warrior with a sword and shield, or then it was not going to permit them to pass any further, so it kind of got that name from that. So that was just a more creative idea I came up with. This is Sanguinestos, which sanguine, if it should give you a bit of a hint at what kind of creatures live there. It's basically name conventions are taken from like Hungarian and Romanian. Those are literally, I went and did like Google searches for names and stuff. Can't remember them off the top of my head. Korb is raven or crow. I think Korb Akasa is Raven Kingdom or something like that, or Raven Land or something. I know there's like the Black Shore and different stuff. I'll come back in, and I didn't want to spend too much time looking them up, but those, literally are Romanian, Hungarian names. So I instead of having Central Eastern Europe, I just where it would normally be located, I just located it on its own separate island because it's got a lot of supernatural activity going on, and it's in closer location to Voldenskog, which has got some other supernatural beings, and they are not the best of friends, so there's a lot of conflict going on. So the closer they were made it more likely that their conflicts would be more regular, as opposed to if they were on completely opposite sides of a continent, with the travel and whatnot. It makes more sense that they'd feud more often if they were closer together. All right, so this is kind of a world map, basic idea, super basic. Like I started with, like I said, after this we'll get to the. I might have one more. After this we'll get to the good map, but this is basically kind of what I have so far. So like I said, you've got the kind of the European-based areas all around in here. You've got this continent which is based off of Africa. This one I haven't completely worked out the location. Well, it's probably going to be a little bit closer, but it's more of like a pre-Islamic Middle East. But this area actually right here is they're both gonna have a kind of a similar feel, where we'll have a combination of ancient Egypt, ancient Persia, ancient Mesopotamia, and so forth. Instead of, like I said, because in this world there is no monotheistic religions, and I'm not creating any religions that are a counterpart of Islam or Christianity or Judaism. I'm purposely avoiding those kind of connections. So I'll be using cultures that existed far earlier than that as my kind of launching point. And so this is much closer. Like I said, I don't have this portion quite figured out yet for this area, but like I said, this is a more, you can tell, like I cut pieces off of an actual map, probably that one I showed you, and then started kind of moving pieces away, because this area right in here is actually a magical area that's been phased out by magic, and it's where the all the supernatural creatures exist, and where the gods reign over. Because part of the origin story is that the whole planet was kind of like Pangea in a way, and an event caused the different land masses to fracture off from this main one here, and humankind, kind of was managed to survive in a very infant state of humankind, Homo sapien or whatever, and roughly what would be maybe the mankind at about the turn of the Ice Age. You could say that's about the time period when they were all separated away from severed from the gods and all of these other supernatural creatures. So that is a yet to come project. I have a lot to work on that to try to figure that one out, because it's going to be completely drenched, or not drenched, entrenched in the fantastic, and not like a pseudo Europe at all. All right, so there is the basically the first map that let's see here. Yeah, I think it was. I had to zoom in, but yeah, that's the basic one that I started with, because I had to use a artist to create the map for me. So I think I kind of sent that that one, and she ended up sending this kind of back as a mock up, or I might have changed a few things. I can't remember exactly, but like I said, I've got my little mountain range here that's important. I had that little water feature that was important. I started to mark where the capitals were, gave all the names, and have like I said, these kind of different places. So let's see here. I think I have to zoom out. I'm used to using the old school image viewer, which I like a lot more, and I've actually been able to figure out how to put it on Windows 10. But this one with the black border, it looks a little bit better. So forgive me for it not looking super professional. Like I said, this is my first time doing this. All right. So as you saw that last map that I had, we have this other one overlaid. And we've got our kind of that main mountain range, which I had told her was a feature that I wanted had to be there. So that was like the first thing that was fleshed out. And then I went back over after she did the the shorelines and everything to give it a natural look, like it would look on an actual map. I started drawing in my little trees with little little green things here and there. These might be, I think, for some hills, and then I drew in some little mountains here and there. So it was really a very basic approach from my end, because like I said, I'm not good at drawing at all, but thank God I worked with someone that was really good at doing this. So all right, that's the prototype, and here is the first iteration with basically everything kind of all like cleaned up and all that ugly stuff gone. So yeah, it's pretty good, if I don't say so myself. You've got, like I said, the mountain range. You're starting to get, you've got all these rivers and lakes. You're seeing that like it says, mountains and are water sources, fresh water are come from the mountains, and from snow melt and rain and everything they collect, and they water seeks the lowest level, so it goes downhill, and they tend to run together. Especially when they're coming out to the sea, they tend to collect all into one. All these different branches come into one spot when they empty out in the sea. Sometimes they empty out into lakes, which can have been, glacial movement and carved up the land, or a crater formed somehow. So lakes are usually some kind of a demonstration of that kind of a geological movement, and then they just get filled up with water. Some of them, you have lakes that go completely dry during dry season, and ones that stay, about the same level all year long. So it's nice to have somebody that has that idea of how all this stuff works. Otherwise, your map, these are some of the things that I would imagine are on the the list of the 10 biggest mistakes that map creators make, is making mountain ranges that don't look correct, or rivers that don't look correct, and so forth. And so the closer this is to being what you could see on an actual map, it made a big difference. And I'm really happy, seeing this just as the first iteration. I was blown away. All right, so now we've got more mountain ranges and hills and things in place, here and there, and we've got our little block for the title and the legend for the different, like roads and cities and capitals. And then we've got our little distance deal here, which is cool because it's also on the outside of this area. I'm pretty sure I don't know if she got them identical, or if they I think she did. I'm not. She might have adjusted it a little bit on the next one. So you have a way to, I have a way where I can go back through and measure, distances and mark distances. I can mark, distances between capitals and towns and everything, which makes it easier to figure out travel times by, foot or by horse. If someone's only got a few days to get to a certain place or they're, the enemy is going to overrun them, then and they're at a certain spot, I can give a legit time of what it actually might take them to get there. And like I said, it just adds more of a sense of realism to the story. And this time I think I just marked some spots where I wanted, I don't know if I wanted more water spot. I think I wanted more like water features because of the blue, and then I wanted another mountain or hill range there with that. That was what those marks were. And I think we ended up moving that back up there. So now you can start seeing it with some forests all around there. And like I said, green circles for more trees. And let's see here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So you got this spot right here. I really liked how that mountain peak turned out. So I wanted this mountain peak right here to match that. I wanted that to be really high because it was a geological feature, that gave rise to the name of the capital of this area. So I wanted it to be prominent, and like I said, just kind of giving some more input on where I'd like some more trees and so forth. So let me see, yep. And that's kind of what it looks like all the way zoomed out, of course. So let's go to the next one. So yeah, like I said, we're starting to get, we got the compass in with that kind of sunrise, almost sunlight burst thing looking through there, kind of going through, giving it a little bit of more detail. Like I said, I'll go through and zoom in a little bit and kind of move it around and let you all see. Let's see what this looks like. So again, we've got that peak, looking really good, standing out. Like I said, we've got Sanguinestos here. Like I said, we've got the mountain range, the lake. This lake in this area play a part. I've already really envisioned a lot of the story that's going to take place just in this area. It has a big part in the story. Like I said, these are ideas that I formulated in my mind before the map was even created. I knew I needed this location. So I had a lot of this was planned out just by me brainstorming the story itself. Like I said, we've got Voldenskog over here. A little silent island over there, which is actually a pretty cool little place. I won't give away too much information about it, but it's got its own little civilization that's kind of unique. You've got, like I said, Voldenskog here. There's going to be this kind of general area in here, especially up in this mountainous area. There's a fortress that's really important. There's a lot of battles. A lot of battles are going to take place throughout the story, up from the past up till where the present is, and that are going to take place in this area. So a lot of war in this land. This is it'll end up calling the Veiled Isles, or Veiled Isle, which is where one of the main characters' origin story starts here. It's a supernatural place covered in mist. So yeah, let's see, we've got these areas that are kind of, I end up calling the Abandoned Isles. They're more of like a hideout for like brigands and pirates and stuff like that are kind of going up and down the sea coast and raiding. And they have like their hideouts there and stuff because they've been abandoned because there's nobody wanted to attempt to set up settlements there, or did, and they were overrun. So we've got, like I said, Southern Zastrova. We've got at Latrona and part of Melithian, kind of up here. Like I said, this is basically going to based off of United Kingdoms, Ireland, Scotland, obviously. Like I said, as a starting point, it's not going to be a complete one-to-one. You'll have naming conventions and people there that'll sound Irish or Scottish or British, but that's just to give a bit of familiarity with it, so that the readers immersing themselves into the story is a little quicker process before it starts to go to the strange and exotic. And then you have this area right here, which is Radios, which is actually it takes over for ancient Greece, and is going to be an important place in the past. It's a fallen empire, but it was kind of the source for the magic study, and universities and things like sorcerers and stuff was kind of focused there. And like I said, it's kind of a similar to an event like the burning of the library in Alexandria, where a ton of knowledge was lost over a cataclysmic event, and so that'll play a part in the story. So, like I said, a lot of these places I'd already had in my mind before this stuff is even put on paper. So I'm just kind of giving you a bit of my thought process and how you might look at how you design your map. Let's see the next one. So now we've got cities and capitals, and we've got roads now. So let's zoom in a little bit and get an idea of what some of these roads look like. So yeah, I'm just gonna set that there and give you an idea of, you take a look and see where all the, obviously the big stars are the capitals, and those little dots with a circle around them are the different cities or principalities or fiefdoms or whatever they're called, where the nobility rules over a certain territory, pay their, they have a liege lord that they owe their, loyalty to, and it's not going to be a total feudal system. It'll be something a little bit different, because there'll be different spiritual and economic elements in play. So I'm not going to do a one-to-one, because that would be kind of predictable and boring. I'll try to come up with something a little bit different. But if you recall those early on ones where I had the list of all the names, I had them all, plotted out. So I have a list of all the city names before I even, and decided how many I wanted in each one. Melithian has got far more than Zastrova, from what I recall, because these ones are more spread out. So there's a little bit more cultural, I guess, or cohesiveness in this area, since they're so close together, as opposed to some of these. That's why there's kind of a split between the south and the north in Zastrova, which you'll see, because of cultural differences and their kind of a distance between the two areas. So, yep, that's the next iteration. Now we've got basically the same one. This one is everything, but it has none of the roads, but it has the naming of all the places. So you can start to see Voldenskog gets pulled over in another one, because that's not part of Nit Voldenskog, that place right there. But these are, like I said, all the names I came up with for the different areas. They all got placed down, so we know where every city's at or town's at in relation to one another. See all the sources of all the water places. Obviously, places like Veldencrest are right by this big lake and river. They want to, they're setting up a big capital, so they want to be by a source of fresh water. Nelencia is at least, this river. It's also near the ocean, so they have a seaport and everything. So, and this is warm waters, so there's more merchant trade going on. Mirandavia is up here. Like I said, these are just major rivers. There's obviously streams and springs and everything that are going to run off of this. So I didn't want to go down to the very micro level and do that, but give you kind of a general idea where all these places are at. You've got Icehorn, which is the capital of Voldenskog, which is why I wanted that big prominent mountain peak, because that's the mountain peak is named Icehorn, and that's what the capital is named after. And again, like I said, the Red Forest, very bloody, corpse-filled area. And these Eisenshield and Eisenschwert again, because like Mirandavia, they were the capital, so they were trying to ride up to reclaim this area and fighting in that place quite a bit. And during the Voldenskog invasion, obviously they were raiding along the coastline. So, you had issues with kingdoms of Melithian also. And like I said, these two, Sanguinestos and Voldenskog, fighting back and forth for centuries. So, yeah. So, like, I constantly can, look at this map. We're not even at the finished one yet. And really start to envision everything that's going on in my story while I'm doing my kind of pre-planning. So now we've got the roads back in, and this is basically just political boundaries um, to get an idea of what kingdoms control what. Zastrova and Southern Zastrova, I separated out just because of there's current political strife. Technically, Zastrova is all of this because they're still under the power of the new king because his father just died. So the kind of the nobility down here is over there's been kind of strained relations over the past rulership because the king that just died that passed on the crown to his son was kind of living it up here and focusing most of his attention up here. So the people in the south started to get really pissed off and started talking about secession, and that's kind of a one of the big points of of conflict that's going to be exploited at the present time of the story. So that's why that's there. And you see that Radios is, even though it's abandoned, it's still technically under the power of Atlatrona, even though it's kind of a ghost area. And yeah, this is the finished map, the lands and kingdoms of Iliathar. You've got capital town on border. You've got, like I said, the distance measure here, so I can always go back and figure out the distances between locations. It's always important. I've got political borders, so I can keep in mind what place belongs to what. When I'm talking, alliances are changing alliances, and the political borders might shift during the story if differences alliances form or people start to war against one another. So this map they might have a before and after the the Great War type of map. If these territories, these these principalities, whatever, get redistributed or stuff. But that's probably not that's way down on the list of things. I got to tell the story first. So yeah, the Veiled Isle, I had her put a lot of fog over it to make it sure it was looked kind of mysterious. And if you were to have a world map of that from that day, there wouldn't be really anything you could tell about this place because it's shrouded in mist, and it's kind of a superstitious. People don't go there, and superstitions still hold pretty strong in this day and age for a lot of the peasant folk and whatnot. So yeah, and that is. Let me go zoom in just a little bit to give you an idea. Let's just kind of do a tour here, the northern part. Like I said, if you want to pause this at any time, obviously you can look at things in closer detail. I'm not going to spend too much time just talking about all this stuff again, but we've got Zastrova there. Like I said, I've got that part where they're going to travel over the mountain, and there's going to be I don't know where exactly it'll be, but there'll be a fort and a water crossing of some place that's super important. It's like a super important strategical landmark or fort or something, that's kind of keeping the invasion or the armies that are fighting, because the end game of the war is up here. That's where it's a new kind of mystery antagonist who seduced the new ruler of Merendavia to form a holy alliance, if you will. And so the war is because there's this big huge castle up here, and it's got this magical properties, this source, it's this untapped source of magical power that has been dormant, and so this antagonist gets a hold of it, and he becomes super powerful. So then you've got the rest of the country, they're feuding amongst themselves, and eventually they have to come together and get up to here to end the war. So during a strategic point, Southern Zastrova is not able to advance up, and they've got a big army, and so we've got our MC, our protagonist, leads a kind of a suicide mission over the mountains, and is able to accomplish some feats to kind of help the war out. So which be a lot more detailed and intricate than that, but that's kind of, like I said, I've got this, and I got everything set up so I know where I'm plotting out. I could literally print this out and just write notes on this map of plot points and stuff of chapter 1, we're here, chapter 2, we're there, blah, blah, blah. So it's a valuable visual tool as for more than just, something pretty to look at, if you will. But I hope all of you guys are like dig it and realize that if you do want to spend the money, you can get a pretty damn good product out of it. And obviously, this isn't in color; that would have cost me a lot more. But I think this ended up costing me just a little bit over $300 to get this completely done. I mean, it obviously took a lot of work, and I went through several iterations. But it's it's mine, my property now. So I've got a official map for my series, at least that's I say 90% accurate and won't be changed. I don't plan on changing it, but it's good enough for telling the story, at least up to the part where this main conflict is over, and we move on to those mysterious places that mankind hasn't seen for thousands of years. So yeah, that's that map, and I think I have one more. This is the one that showed on that other picture that's representing a continent that's similar to Africa. It's called Osirica, and you've got like the northern part, which is similar to like ancient Egypt, and then you've got like the sub-Saharan Africa, which is going to be a combination of African tribal cultures and peoples mixed with some other elements, possibly from like Native American or Central South American. As far as like there'll be like more stone architecture and temples and things like that. So it'll be a lot. It'll be a twist on some of the, and you'll have like similar things to like voodoo and stuff, but it'll be a little bit different. Different folk religions and things like that. I have to do some studying up on some of the history of the and culture of the the sub-Saharan Africa and whatnot, since I'm more familiar with the Egyptian part. And so this place is gonna be really cool. It'll play a minor part in the present. It's not going to be as involved as the main area. This place will be a huge plot point, definitely. But yeah, this is something else I'm going to have to work on, but I don't really feel like spending the money to get it completed yet, and I haven't decided how everything's going to be laid out, so that's a project for another day. But yeah, I hope this gives you some inspirations and see how you can, if you've got your own the own ability to do this in like Photoshop or whatever and design it by hand, just kind of the thinking process. And it's not really that hard. I mean, I suck at drawing, and I was able to get something super basic and hand it over to somebody that understood what I wanted to do. And as you can see, that's the final result, and it probably was about several weeks. This was a person was doing this as a side job to earn extra money. Wasn't her full-time job, so a few weeks. About, like I said, maybe $320. I might have thrown in that 20 extra as a tip because of being of appreciation. But yeah, got it done, and I'm super happy with it. And like I said, it's really helpful and motivation for just motivating me to have this up on like a background and stuff. And when I'm typing up and kind of trigger ideas I might have kind of forgotten for the moment. Oh yeah, this place is and so on and forth. So yeah, I hope this is helpful to you guys. I don't know when the next time I'll be doing a video like this. I'll probably do some just commentary ones, but I may do some other ones when it comes to like character design and stuff. I might do like a PowerPoint type setup and record it like this. But anyway, I hope hopefully this video works and everything's synced and I can get it up sooner than later. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching the video. If you found it worthwhile, like, comment, subscribe, and share it with your friends if you think that your world building buddies might get some use from it. So until next time, everybody, take it easy.